You got that message on your screen about the recording being in progress? Got it?
Yep.
I'm going to let another person into the room. This meeting will be recorded and posted to YouTube. Please have that in mind for the duration of the meeting. It is Tuesday. It is August 24th, 2021. I'm here. You are here. We must be in the right place. Good evening. It's 6:35 and we're going to begin this meeting. Good to see you all here. Tonight we begin with the new meeting format that I spoke of last month. Meeting format? Yeah, going forward, the relationships that I have developed with our sponsors over the past several months should provide us with some very good educational webinars for us to attend. Tonight, we're going to hear from Dan Steinhardt. And this is because our club sponsor, Hunt's Photo and Video, Noah, thank you, Noah, is bringing us a personalized learning experience for our group, allowing VPC members to enjoy the learning and the sharing of information. Facebook. Yeah, Facebook. I encourage the VPC members to do a little bit more posting on the VPC Facebook page. To offer praise and commentary on the photos posted by members would encourage them to even post more. Even better would be to see photos accompanied by a story, or maybe the technical data, such as f-stop, the ISO setting. Hear that, William? We'd all like to hear that your photos were shot at 2000 ISO. Maybe you're onto something. Zoom meetings amongst ourselves. I am sure you know that Instagram and Facebook are not forums for constructive criticism. Just see what happens when you post anything resembling a criticism on Facebook or Instagram. Something Lloyd Delaney and I gave a go at was to have our own Zoom meeting, just the two of us, to share the band photos we took at the concert at the Warner Park. The two of us shared our photos during a Zoom session. We both were very honest about what we liked and what we did not like about each other's photos. Brutal honesty in some cases. The suggestions made allowed for us to see the photo in a different way, which at times made for a new session in post-production, and the resulting photos were just awesome. More recently, Lloyd, Ellen, and I had a Zoom session where we made suggestions about one another's photos. Naturally, with 3 people, this session took a little bit longer. Today, I was on the phone with Lloyd, and for a bit, we were talking about what those Zoom sessions had resulted in. He said that during the Zooms, pardon me, I'm sorry, I thought someone needed to be let in the room. Today, I was on the phone with Lloyd for a bit, and he mentioned how the Zoom sessions sort of repeat themselves in his mind when he's having a Lightroom or Photoshop session, and also when he's on location. I don't know if I said it out loud, but I was thinking about it, and I agree. When I was at the last band presentation performance, I too kind of heard the echoes of the last session, and knowing that there would be a Zoom session where we share our photos once again, paid closer attention to detail and made for a better photo in the camera. Photo ops. The most recent photo op was attended very well. We met at the Adamson house adjacent to the Malibu Lagoon. We spent a bit of time at the Adamson house and then walked to the Malibu Pier. The photo topic for this month is Adamson house, Malibu Lagoon. This month, we're going to have 15 photo entries to see. Those will play after we hear from our sponsor and the presentation. I will play a short video compiled of the 15 photos before the photo share begins. I will begin each photo by announcing its name and its title, and then we can talk about them. There will be no scoring tonight. It seems to work better when there's no scoring. Commentary from the maker is encouraged. Most of the makers of the photos will be here. Noah, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. Just wanted to say a few words. I'm really happy that we were able to get this program lined up with Epson, and really, again, want to thank you, Dan, for coming out and doing this program tonight. For those of you who may not be familiar with Hunts, since we are nowhere near LA, we're actually a New England-based photo and video retail company, but we actually work with different camera clubs and photography groups and organizations all over the country. Typically, I'm traveling, attending trade shows and conferences and events all over, and 99% of the people I work with aren't even in the New England region, where all of our stores are based out of. I'm actually going to Chicago next week. I was in Arizona 2 weeks ago, so I kind of make my way around and really have been doing photography since I was 14 and have been working for Hunts now for almost 5 years. And it's been a really big passion of mine. And I love being able to come on, work with so many other like-minded photographers, share my passion for photography with everybody, and really help out our customers find the right gear and equipment that they need to suit their needs. And also be able to line up and organize programs like this with the vendors that we work with, such as Epson and many others as well. It's really been a great opportunity for us to stay connected with so many people. If we were meeting in person, it would be pretty hard for us to come out to LA just for a evening presentation. But because of Zoom and being able to do things virtually, it allows us to get together and connect and learn more about photography, which has been really great for us. I do want to say that if anybody has any questions for myself, I will put my email down in the chat. I just saw that they put down some of the specials and everything that we have going on for the program tonight, along with Epson. I'll put my contact information down there as well, but I do see that Jay put it down, which is awesome. So I appreciate that. I won't be able to stay on for the whole program tonight, but I've seen Dan do this program multiple times now, and you're definitely in for a treat and are going to learn a lot. If you're interested in printing, you are definitely in the right place. Also want to mention too, coming up the first weekend of November, which is the 5th, 6th, and the 7th, we're hosting our annual Hunt Show, which is typically an event that we do every year in person, but this year we're also going to have a virtual component of it as well. We'll have more information going out on that, and we'll make sure to send it to you, Jay, and make sure we get that out to all the members. It's going to be completely free. We're going to have some great presentations lined up over the course of that weekend from presenters from Fuji, Sigma, Tamron, Olympus, and several other companies as well, which is going to be really exciting and opportunities for great promotions and specials along that line as well. If you want to keep up with what we're doing, you can find us on social media, Hunts Photo and Video, on all platforms to keep up with everything that we have going on. But just want to thank you again, Jay, and thank you, Dan, for coming on to do this program, and thank Epson for having you come on and do this. Really looking forward to all the great feedback that we get, and looking forward to talking to everybody soon. I will unmute myself, or I'll mute myself after I finish up here. I'll stay on for a little bit longer if anybody has any questions, but otherwise email is always the best way to get in touch with me. So thank you again, Jay. I will pass it back to you.
Oh, you're thanking me, and I'm glowing inside and out because I owe you the gratitude. Thank you. You're very easy to work with. You're good to my club. You're good to the people that are here right now. We all very much appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So are you going to introduce our Epson guy?
Yes. Yeah, I wasn't sure if there's anything else you need to say, but if we're all set, very warm welcome to Dan Steinhardt from Epson. We've been working with Dan now for a while. I've gotten to know him better over the past year or so in doing these virtual programs and presentations. Dan is an awesome guy to work with, been in the industry for a long, long time, and has a lot of knowledge to share with all of you. So you are all in for a treat. So Dan, I will let you go ahead and take it away.
Okay,
Dan, will you need to be sharing the screen?
Yes.
Then I'm going to give you that privilege. So go ahead. I'll make that happen for you.
Okay, it's like the Outer Limits. I'm in control, or whatever it was.
Yeah, really.
Okay. Well, it's a pleasure to be here for a variety of reasons. No, I'm not sure if you realize this, but even though most people can associate me with New York, I am a native Valley boy.
Ah.
And I just found this thing here. I'm going to share my screen. In 1976, and this was in the whatever the Valley newspaper was. This was my 15 minutes of fame at age 17. And I am a graduate of Reseda High, and some of you may know that during the 70s and 80s, Reseda had probably the best high school photo program in the country, and it allowed me to move into Brooks with advanced standing. And even today, I run into Reseda High graduates around the country in the world of photography. So when I heard it was the Valley Photo Club, it was like, I'm home. But let's talk a little bit about printing. And I can't tell on Zoom who has printers or shows of hands, so I'm just going to do some basic things. And I think what would be best is if you have questions, just go ahead and ask them. We don't have to wait till the end.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great. Good to know.
Okay.
Good.
So I'm going to do some basic stuff, and yeah, let's do some of this. If it's gets a little too crazy, let me know. Or if it's like, yeah, we know this, give us some more advanced stuff, we can do that too. So I want to talk a little bit about, the very best way to ensure that you're going to get prints that you want. Really has the first thing, it's not necessarily what you do with the printer, it's what you're doing with your monitor. And I think many of you are familiar with, they're called colorimeters. Actually, let me stop sharing my screen. I'll just hold up one. Different manufacturers do different things. Let me put myself on here. Yeah. So this one is by X-Rite, and some of them are very sophisticated. Some of them are really expensive. Some of them are really reasonable. Even the most inexpensive one of these pucks colorimeters that I'd have to defer to Noah, but they'll probably be in the $150 range at the entry level. Do an amazing job at ensuring that you're going to get prints that are not going to surprise you by being off color or too light or too dark. So that's really the great thing. The thing that I always encourage people to do if you're getting into printing, or if you have been printing and you're not calibrating your monitor, make sure you use a colorimeter or a puck. And then there's a couple of key things that I just wanted to show you. Can you see my screen okay now?
Absolutely.
So this is the software for i1. It tends to be used by a lot of professionals. And I'm not going to take you through the whole calibration process, except for what are the key things to set up. And after you've launched the software and the type of monitor you have, you want to set the white point to D65. And most of the default today with Gamma is 2.2. But here's the most important one. And this will save a lot of grief if you haven't done this. The luminance should be set to 100 to 100, and it'll say CDM squared. That stands for candelas per meter squared. Some people, depending on the industry, and it'll be called nits. As the industry transitioned, about 15 years ago from CRTs to LEDs and other types of illuminants, we had this massive rash of, wow, my prints are too dark. My prints are too dark. The prints weren't too dark. The monitor was too bright. And today, especially with a lot of new monitors, like I'm presenting now on my iMac, and out of the box, this iMac is probably double that 120 candelas per meter squared, because people use it for email, they use it for a variety of things, and it gets brighter and brighter and brighter, and that's great. Then the prints can get too dark. So that's the main thing I wanted to talk about, monitor calibration, 100 to 120. Yeah.
Can I interrupt for a second? I have the Data Color Spider X.
Yep.
And when I go on, it'd say brightness to 120. But my thing on it goes to 100. What it's showing goes up to 100 as the brightness. So I don't know. I calibrate my monitor once a month automatically.
Mm-hmm.
And truthfully, it looks good because it's backlit, what have you. When my prints come out, it almost matches, but they seem just a little bit on the darker side.
That could be what Dan is bringing to light. Is that
the higher
luminance.
The higher this number is in candelas meter squared or nits,
Yeah.
The brighter the monitor will be.
Yeah.
And our eyes are amazing things that, essentially the iris stops down and we adjust to it. But the printer, including the one behind me, it doesn't have an iris. And generally, if your prints are coming out too dark, you want to lower this number. But be careful of the word brightness. Brightness is not how these are measured. They're measured in luminance. which is a scientific measurement. Brightness is a
Oh,
perceptual.
all right, okay.
Like,
right.
so you might be, there might be a monitor setting you have called brightness, but it's
Yeah,
not luminous.
yeah.
So make sure you don't confuse those two. It's easy to do.
Okay, yeah, I see. Okay.
So, anyway, so that's but I'm, you're kind of like threw me a nice softball there. Yeah, my prints are coming a little dark, and this is what we hear a lot. And generally the monitor is too bright. So
Okay.
let me go here, and I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm not going to go into a lot of Photoshop stuff, but a little bit of starting the printing workflow from a raw file. I heard earlier we were talking with raw file. So this is a raw file that I had, and you can open a raw file, as you know, depending if you're on a Mac, you can just double click it, or what I like to do is I just drag it on top of the icon, which makes Windows people crazy. But I kind of like doing that. And I'm going to move stuff around here a little bit.
Great
And,
photo.
oh, thanks. Yeah, I shot this. If you look at my Instagram or my website, it's called Between Meetings. So, pre-pandemic, although we're starting to travel a lot now, I was traveling weekly, and I would always try to find photographs, make photographs in between meetings. So I was at a trade show in Atlanta, and I heard about this world's largest junkyard halfway between Atlanta and Chattanooga in the middle of nowhere. And it was, and I had a nice cloudy day. It was like a photographer's dream. But when we get to Photoshop, the first thing, as you all know, we always work, or you should know that Camera Raw was designed so you always work top down. You never go, oh, I'm going to go here to dehaze. I'm going to jump down here. It's always working top down, and keep that in mind for something I'll show a little bit later. But many people miss this area down here. And when you have a raw file, as was mentioned earlier, it's raw. So you want to tell Photoshop or tell Adobe Camera Raw, whatever raw software you're using, what color space and what bit depth to open it up into. And if you're not familiar with those terms, let me show you how this works.
Yeah.
In Adobe Camera Raw, which is what a lot of people do. Depending on how your system is, the default might be sRGB. Now, I was on a panel once on color management with the person that invented sRGB. His name is Michael Stokes. And the joke was that that stood for Stokes RGB. But if you really understand color management, a lot of people would call it satanic RGB because it has such a narrow color space. And I'll show you that in a little bit. But if you click here, you'll see that everything above this line are color spaces. These are profiles. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And sometimes the default is sRGB. There are many people in the photographic world who say, of course, I use Adobe RGB 1998, and because that's from Adobe, and that's what I was told to use. I'll show you a little bit about why that's an okay color space. But if you want the greatest color gamut in your prints, Epson printers on the pro side have exceeded Adobe RGB for over 10 years. So when you use Adobe RGB, you're actually clipping colors that a printer can print. So we encourage the use of Pro Photo RGB. And the key to using Pro Photo RGB, I shouldn't say the key, the mandatory is you must select 16 bits, and that's per channel. And the reason is if you're in 8-bit, without doing a whole bunch of math here, which I was never that great at, that's why I went to Brooks, you run the risk of banding if you're in 8-bit. And make sure you're at 16-bit and you're in Pro Photo RGB. I always keep this as the default, whatever camera you're using.
So Dan, sRGB is not going to give you a 16-bit option? sRGB will not give you a 16-bit option, or it will give it to you?
It will.
Okay, so the larger color space, and that's, I'm not saying you weren't clear. The gamut, the larger space is the pro space. And
Yes.
not only with Epson, but with any output that's printed, that is a bigger variety, millions and millions in color, correct? Less banding.
Yes, and I'll show that to you here in a second, what that really means and what it means to photographs. But But if you are opening your raw files into Adobe RGB, that's okay. But if you're going to be printing, I can't speak for other manufacturers' printers, but Epson printers, as I mentioned earlier, have exceeded the color Gamut, G-A-M-U-T, not to be confused with Gamma, for many years. And ProPhoto RGB is the largest space to work in. But when you're in that, make sure you're in 16-bit. Otherwise, you run the risk of prints that have lines in it, depending on how much cropping and how much work you do in the workflow. So with that, get out of this. You're giving me all these great segues. Let's talk about color gamut and what that is. Are there any color scientists in this club?
Yeah, right.
Well, that's good. That way,
There might be. I shouldn't say that.
it can get a little controversial, but before we go into, can you see this okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So when you get to color science, many people may be more familiar with this. I have a feeling most of you have seen this. And it's called, some people would call it the horseshoe. Scientifically, it's known as YXY, where Y is luminance, which is a form of lightness, not brightness. And it's two-dimensional. I remember when digital imaging first started and we started to see these things, we were told that this represents all the colors the human eye can see. And as I got into understanding this and working a lot with color scientists, because a lot of things I have to do with projection, this is a highly flawed way of looking at color, because color is three-dimensional, which I'll show you in a minute. And this was done with the best tools at the time with, I believe, 12 men in Switzerland about 100 years ago. And they made readings and what people saw, and they came up with this chart. For the time, it was great, but it's literally not perceptually uniform. So you have these reds down here that kind of occupy this amount of real estate, and yet you have all these greens up here. But does that mean that there's greater greens in the universe of color and less red? And the answer to that is no, that we see colors in three dimensions. So in 1976, color scientists came together and developed a new way of looking at color called LAB. You may be familiar with it. Some people call it lab color or lab color space or C-lab. And C-lab is three-dimensional. And we can look at it in this kind of space. And the lab comes from L, which is not luminance, as we were talking earlier with the colorimeter. It stands for lightness. And I was confused by all this with, well, what's the difference between lightness and brightness? In the lightness scale, scientifically, 0, this is 1 to 100 up and down. 0 is black, 100 is white. And then colors on these vectors are represented on an AB axis, and that's where LAB comes from. So a more saturated color would plot three-dimensionally further out on this axis, depending how bright it is. So if it was a very dark color, it would be down here, and then depending on the axis. If it was a very pastel color and it was dark, it'd be down here. A pastel color and light, it would be up here. So what does that mean in kind of the real world? So let me pull up a couple of images. Here's another image that I shot at, this place is called Old Car City. And it was an overcast day. Sorry, I've got to move all of you on Zoom here. So not a lot of color saturation, relatively, desaturated, interesting photograph under that kind of light. Let me move that right there. I'm going to open this here. I'm going to move these people here. So let's take this image and I'll show you how it plots in three-dimensional color space. Sorry, I'm just going to.
Wow, that's interesting.
I'll just do that so you can see it at the same time. So why is that disappearing on me? Let's try that.
Side by side.
There we go. So you can see that So the highlights in the top of the metal hood ornament, they're up here, and that's that 100 range. These are the patina and those greens, but it's not a saturated color. So it's, in this area and here, and it's moving in that direction. And, we can look at things three-dimensionally, and we can see things that really get a sense of how that color plots three-dimensionally. So let me pull up the Srgb color space. That's what Srgb is three-dimensionally. And some people might be very interested in why is it this oblong shape? I would need 3 Zoom meetings an hour each to explain it, and then I probably wouldn't get it right. I have to bring in a color scientist. So for now, you're just gonna have to trust me on this. This is what the Srgb colored space looks like based on the measurements, based on human vision, which can get very complicated. Now I can reduce the opacity of this so that we can see what is inside, and you can see this image and how it plots is easily contained within Srgb. So if you're photographing these types of pastel images, overcast light, and that's your style and that's all you do, then Srgb is probably a fine color space to work in. Srgb was designed for the web. It is the color space of the web. It's important if you are sharing your images on the web that if you're in a larger color space to convert to Srgb, because that's how everyone's going to do that. It's a little bit of the Wild West of color management.
Dan,
So,
Dan,
I'm sorry?
I just realized I am truly a visual learner. You have just flipped the switch. I understand the color space now like never before.
oh, well, wait, there's more.
What a great job you did. I can only hope 25 other people have just had their light switch flipped, because that really made sense to me.
Well, take a look at this, which might be even more interesting. So I get the gallery of everybody here. I'm going to move it around so I can find my real estate. But so that's how that looks. But let's take a look at a more saturated image. And I'm going to turn these off. And I'm going to close that. And this is an image I was did a video production. I do a lot of video production at Epson, and it was with a photographer who I was a hero of mine from high school. His name was Brian Lanker, and he was in Eugene, Oregon, and I was driving to the airport to go home in Portland, and I came across, it's called the Urban Iditarod. It's the same day as the Iditarod in Alaska, only in Portland. If you know Portland and their keep it weird philosophy, they dress in teams and they mush to bars all around Portland. And these were the chicken men. But it's one of my favorite images, but it's a good one to demonstrate color. And you can see about the saturation of the color. You can see in their heads and stuff. So let me show you how that much more saturated image plots three-dimensionally.
Wow, what a difference.
And you can see how those saturated yellows and reds, how they move much further out along those vectors, because those are those saturated colors. And here's the blue sky. Sometimes we can look at it up and down. You can see where all these are kind of going in those reds. And of course, reds in general are darker tones, so they're lower and they plot further out. So it's kind of almost like basic high school, graphing techniques, but everything's perceptually uniform so that we can better understand, how color works in 3 dimensions. So if I were to open that image originally in Srgb, and so this is the term, you may hear the term, these colors are out of gamut in Srgb, and you can see by moving it, sometimes you can get faked out, but if you move around, you can see, oh, several of those values in the blue sky are out of gamut. Certainly most of the yellows in that head are out of gamut, as well as a lot of reds. And let's turn that off. And for those that, well, I always use Adobe RGB. It's so much wider than Srgb. It's wider, but here's Adobe RGB, and look at all the yellows and reds that are still out of gamut. Now, an Epson printer will not be able to print everything in LAB color space. but you want to work in the widest color gamut possible in your color space. And that's why you want to use Pro Photo RGB. That's Pro Photo RGB. Now, I asked if there's a color scientist here because it can be kind of a debate around, well, this is, no human can see it in full Adobe, and I'm sorry, in full Pro Photo RGB. And that's true, but who cares? If we can contain more colors, we have more colors that we have the potential of printing. If we've calibrated the monitor properly and we use soft proofing, then you're going to have a pretty good idea of being able to get the most out of what you've captured in a print. And here I'm going to reduce the opacity, and you can see virtually all of those colors, not all of them, but virtually all of them are contained within Pro Photo RGB. So I always think that's kind of an interesting way to, better understand how these things work and what the actual size is. So there's sRGB. There is Adobe RGB, and I'll reduce. So Adobe RGB is bigger in these values, but not necessarily over in these areas. And that's why sRGB is still okay with certain flesh tones. But then, of course, that's Pro Photo RGB. And that's why we recommend it and how to work with it. That makes sense? Any questions?
Yeah, you're saying Pro RGB on my data color. It's a Pro Spider X. It has RGB, sRGB, and which I call not the same color. It doesn't have Pro. I use sRGB because it seems to, and the lines and everything seem to fit into that area, right? Sort of get a triangle. I don't have what you have there. So whether
they're two different things.
Yeah.
So if you're using your spider, I think I have one here. Just it looks like one of these things, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they're great. You don't do anything with color spaces with these.
Okay.
All you're doing is you're telling it how bright it should be, and then it'll run a whole series of patches based on the brightness.
Okay.
So essentially, you'll get a neutral grayscale based on the brightness.
Yeah.
In an Adobe Camera Raw, that's where you select the color space.
I see. Okay.
Okay.
So I'd like to say that what I've learned today, as far as color space goes, I'm going to look at the color spaces you demonstrated as umbrellas. And Pro Photo RGB is the beach umbrella. It's the largest umbrella, and you might as well, if you have the capacity to do so, use that as your umbrella. Why even bother with sRGB or Adobe if you're printing at home? Is there a benefit? Is there a benefit? Yeah.
You can always reduce to sRGB. But if a lot of people say, well, I'll do all my work in sRGB and I'll convert later to Pro Photo RGB. All you've done is you've taken a quart of milk and you put it in a gallon container. It's still a quart of milk.
Right. That's right. It's like shooting in RAW versus shooting in JPEG.
Yeah.
What if you do shoot in JPEG and you also may not have Pro Photo RGB for your printer color or your color space?
That's a good question.
I don't tend to use raw photos myself. I use JPEG.
What kind of work do you do?
Overall, it's just photography is for fun.
Her work is amazing.
Okay. Well,
Thank you, Jay.
let me answer it in two ways. And we run into this a lot with the younger people on Instagram. If all you're ever going to do is post images to the web, which is sRGB, and it can be in social media, it can be in websites, online, etc., and you never want to make a print, you never want to do anything else with that, it's probably fine. shooting raw and all these things are kind of overkill for that. The problem is you'll
I
never
do
know.
gallery shows, so, yeah, and I have my own printer. I have a Canon, what did I say, Pixma Pro. And, so I do like 8x10s or 11x14s on occasion, and put them in the gallery, but then they do print darker. So if I'm starting with a JPEG file and, you know, then am I able to get to the Pro Photo color space to work
Yeah.
in?
I'm curious that question being answered too, but Deanna, I'm also curious. I did a survey recently, somewhat recently, about people and calibration of monitors. Are you one who answered yes, you calibrated your monitor? Because we got to
And
start. with
yes,
that.
I do.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
and
that's
yes.
so that's to our advantage. And the fact that you shoot in JPEG, and your question is using the Pro space when you print, how would that be an advantage to her, Dan? To use the Pro space, or is she already
May not
lost?
have it, is what I'm thinking. I may not have the Pro, then what would I use next best, I guess?
But my question is
So if,
also, has she lost?
yeah, it's gone. You see, what happens is if you capture in JPEG on your camera, you can set one of two color spaces. You can set sRGB on some cameras. You can set Adobe RGB.
There you go. Okay.
You cannot set ProPhoto RGB.
So when you have when you have a raw image, you can make use of the Pro Photo. There you go.
I have a good friend, Henry Wilhelm, who was an expert in light fastness and stuff. And the question always comes up around, well, most of my images, it doesn't matter how long they last, 20 years, I'll be gone. Though the thing is, you just never know what is going to be that important image. What is the one that could be a big revenue producer, even if you're not a professional. So when you capture in JPEG, you are automatically limiting that file to what you could do with it. You might be getting acceptable quality, but it's called a lossy file. It's a compression file, so you're losing information, and you're also potentially clipping colors that you could print, but they're gone.
I never shot raw. I kept thinking I would. My question is if I shoot raw and then I want to make the prints, I could still use my I have Elements 2020 on the raw file. I can use that. Now, my question is this: are you getting, looks like a negative when you're looking at when it's the raw file, when you put it up and see it? Does it look like a negative, and then you adjust colors or something on that, or what? You understand what I'm saying?
You learned in the darkroom, I could tell.
Yes. Oh yeah.
But the very basics of it are very similar. When you're an Adobe camera, and I'll do this real quick, then we'll get into printing. Let me just show you real quick. Let's get out of this. So let me open up that raw file again. So this is the histogram. And unlike the darkroom, which was black and white, sensometric curves, dealing with three curves, red, green, and blue. And there's going to be your shadows and then your highlights. And what you're doing is with these, you have all of this amazing control. You are manipulating that histogram essentially. And you can do it in different ways. Scientifically, we have to go to what's called a linear response. And that's way down here. But you really want to use this thing called parametric. I have it set up for all zeros for some other stuff that I'm doing. And it was mentioned earlier, the the bittersweet thing about these things is, you know, the skill level that you need is a lot less these days. You can blow the exposure to a certain degree and get away with it here and save it. Ditto this. You can be in really bad light and salvage it rather than shooting in the right light. But if you watch this up here, when you're moving this around, you're adjusting various parts of those red, green, and blue curves. And with a tremendous control that we never had before.
And a lot of information inside that raw
This
file
is-
to work with.
This is this, what we're showing right now is a raw file.
Correct.
This is a raw file opened up in Photoshop.
Yeah,
which
okay.
is a thing called
I got
Adobe.
it.
Right.
So the
Yeah, I
question-
guess I was going to the old dark room.
the question is, if my camera can do Adobe RGB and I am taking picture in RAW, this is a better than sRGB, right?
No. When you shoot a raw file, it's a raw file. So it's a bit of a fake out, because most cameras, you can select sRGB, you can select Adobe RGB, you can select 12-bit, sometimes 14-bit. But if you shoot raw, it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
Those only apply to JPEG. The other thing that you should keep in mind is the preview that you get on your cameras. Those are based solely on JPEGs.
And the manufacturer may have their own formula for the JPEG.
Right.
Canon is known
So
for.
you're saying if I shoot raw and I look at my monitor, my camera, that's in JPEG?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's why you should be looking at the histogram, which is also available to you,
Gotcha.
because it's based on that. And also to the last thing I wanted to mention for Deanna was exactly what Jay just mentioned. If you shoot JPEG, depending on the camera manufacturer, they're going to make some assumptions, or they're going to bake in a certain look that they
Correct.
think is good for the masses. And that look's going to be different based on the type of camera you have. It can vary between different camera manufacturers. If you're serious about developing a style and you're exhibiting your own work, you really don't want any camera manufacturer dictating what your color should be. But there's a learning curve in order to, work in raw so that you develop what that is. So
Shoot all day, edit all night.
I have a question real quick. How much of the Epson can cover Pro Photo RGB space?
that depends on the paper, primarily the paper. And we'll talk a little bit about that. In fact, let me jump into that, because what I'm here to talk about is some of what professionals are doing in printing workflows, and how it's easier these days, but there's still some basic color concepts. It used to be 20 years ago, it was this conquering all this technical thing to make a print, and people used to look at how smart I am. But I just want to kind of go through some things right now and how much easier it is to print, but you still have to have a basic knowledge of color. So let me go back and let's go into some printing. And let's do people do black and white and color, just color.
We go the gamut here. We're at all different levels, all different styles, some raw, some JPEG, some 8-bit,
Okay.
16. You won't find
Here's
them.
So here's an image that I shot in Philadelphia. I was doing a video at a university there, and they told me about this place called Graffiti Pier. And I thought, oh, this is going to be perfect. And it's a.
Do you need someone to carry your camera back for 6 months? I'd love to follow you around.
Well, I have, I like to go to tough neighborhoods, and and it's like, oh, we're gonna go on business. We're gonna go to Philly. It's such a dirty town. I go, I'm there. I love these kind of places. But so I found this place, and there was an abandoned pier in the Delaware River, and it's just artists going crazy there. And and this guy, literally dressed like this, said, "Hey man, can you take a picture of me?" And I said, "Here's the deal. Give me your camera, and then I'll give you a decent shot, and then you're going to be my model for the next half hour." Anyway, so we're not going to talk about how I manage this in Photoshop and stuff. We're just going to assume we've done all that. But I want to show an easier way to print for those of you that maybe are doing printing now and you're going through Photoshop, you're going through Lightroom. And it's a free software that we have out there now called Epson print layout. And you would get to it from Photoshop by going to File, Automate, and launch Epson print layout. And you can see it's taking this file and it's going to open up the software. Going to make this a little bit bigger. And just like Adobe Camera Raw, you always work top down. Now for those, and I'm on a Mac, some of you might be on Windows, but the process normally would be, okay, if you go to File, Print, and then you're going to do things in the Photoshop dialog box, then you have to go to the Epson driver, then you have to go back to the Photoshop dialog box. This is all on one panel and working top down. So here, you would set the printer, and I've been using the P900. We can talk a little bit about that later. The media type, and this is going to answer the question that was raised. Watch how this color will change from this paper, which is called Legacy Fiber, which is a very high quality matte paper. If I were to choose a glossier paper, such as Luster, I'm not sure how well that looks on Zoom, but see the shift.
Big
So
difference.
this is a concept called soft proofing. It's built into Epson print layout so that you can, it's just physics. When you're working with a matte paper, due to dot gain, colors are just not going to be as saturated versus a glossier type paper. And we could do a whole thing on papers if you're interested at another time. But to answer your question about how much of a color gamut, it's going to depend on the type of printer you have and the ink set. And then it's going to be a function of what paper you're using to how much you can actually capture and how much you can print. But the general rule is, if you're working in that very wide color space, you've opened up a raw file, you're going to get as much as you can, and then it degrades down a little bit. But if you've clipped colors and you're going to work with a luster paper, you may be basically clipping colors that you could have printed.
Good point.
And then you would set your paper size here, whether you're doing, legal for this thing. We can go up to, I'll just do something arbitrary here. We can go to 17 by 22, which is a popular size because that's what the P900 can do. It's loading that information down here. It's going to be a function of how much RAM is in the computer. And then your quality settings. If you have these printers, there is a feature called carbon black, which only applies to high gloss papers like premium glossy, metallic glossy. It does absolutely nothing on luster. I've been telling my colleagues in Japan, please get rid of this, because all it'll do is increase the
Consumption.
the printing time and will do nothing to the actual print. So you want to shoot for max quality. If you're using a premium glossy type paper, you can select, and what that does is it gives a richer Dmax. I can show you that in a little bit. And then you just kind of move down into these boxes. You can, with this software, depending on the type of work you're doing, if you're doing panoramas, you can print that. You can do gallery wraps for those that like to work with canvas, etc. And, this is always a term that always threw me about orientation. It's landscape or portrait. Well, what if I have a horizontal portrait and a vertical landscape? But I lost that argument a long time ago. These terms, since everyone's interested in a little trivia, these terms come from the monitor industry because there was a company called Portrait Displays that made the first vertical monitors, and they were used for Wall Street. They were used for financial reporting. So they called it a portrait monitor, only because it was vertical, like you would look at a person, and we're stuck with those now, but this is horizontal. Now comes what I think is the cool part of the software. You can do all this in Photoshop, but it's fiddly and you have to be really good at it. If you want your image to be centered, you can just click center. You can do none, but you can then just grab this and go, well, I want the image to be this big on the paper. I want to have a lot of borders, and I want it centered. I can go just move it like this.
Yeah.
You can easily use these sliders, or if you're, if you have a frame, I think someone mentioned they're doing gallery work and they might have a mat and a frame. You can go in here and you can plug in an exact number depending on what that is. But, several professionals, they sign their works and they need more space at the bottom. So you can take this off center, you can go to horizontal, and you'll notice I'm pushing the cursor left and right and it's not going, it's just going up and down. so that I can be assured that these borders are going to be left and right equal and leave more space at the bottom. And that's a big deal for those people that like to sign their prints. This is all doable in Photoshop and Lightroom, but it's easy to make mistakes, and it's hard to do. I always like to make sure the aspect ratio is locked so you're not distorting your image, and you don't want to do that. But some people say, well, can I do cropping? Can I do things? Yes, in limited ways, but I wouldn't recommend it. This is really a program for printing. And we'll make this a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to talk a little bit here about color management, which is a scary topic in this thing of ICC profiles. If you have set the printer correctly and the paper correctly, you just select use ICC profile. Epson Print Layout will automatically select the correct profile for you, the paper profile. Now, some people, they just love going into these things, and depending on how much printers you have, these are all profiles for all the printers that I have here at my house. So I test a lot of things. And I've got to tell you, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I've had a couple of beers, and it's really easy to make a mistake and choose the wrong one. I just do this, it automatically is set.
Are you using Epson paper too?
Well, being the Epson guy, yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. I was just wondering. I had the Canon Pro 100. I had it about for almost 10 years, and it just crapped out on me. And it wasn't worth fixing. The motherboard went, and I was looking for a printer. I looked at Epson and Canon, and I got the Canon Pro 200, which I'm satisfied with. I like it, but the problem is I can't get ink for it. Nobody has ink for it. It's all back ordered.
Yeah, I can't address that other
Yeah, I
company.
know. I'm just saying that.
He's helping you, Dan. He's helping you, Dan.
Okay, I just wanted to talk a little bit here about this thing called rendering intent, which comes from the prepress industry. Is confusing, but to the earlier question about how much can you print and those colors, there are some colors that no one can print, or depending on the paper, and this tells the printer how to deal with those out of gamut colors. The nice, and you can do a thing called soft proving in Photoshop. The nice thing about Epson Print Layout is you would toggle. There's 4 rendering intents. They have crazy names like absolute. There's only 2 that apply to photography, but you can toggle between these 2. And if your monitor is calibrated, and I'm not sure if you can see it, there's some subtle differences here because most of this is not out of gamut. You can make what's the best solution. A lot of people say, well, I always use perceptual because I like the way it perceives, and they don't understand what it's doing. Doesn't matter. Just choose the one that looks good, provided your monitor is calibrated. It's that simple. And then you hit print. It's that easy.
Mhm.
Let me take you quickly through a black and white image. This was, we were doing a photo shoot for an ad campaign a few years ago in Arizona. It was the summer. And it was going to be a chase plane against another plane, and it was too hot, so we couldn't take off. So I had a free day, and I heard about this abandoned dog racing track north of Phoenix, and found this thing. Can't really tell; it's about 160 degrees inside this horrible place, but all this broken tile in that chair, it really was. I thought made for a decent photograph, but I'm going to print this in black and white. A lot of people say, well, how do I do black and white? Do I need a special printer, special inks? And what we recommend again is, go here to Epson Print Layout. This will open that up and bring it in. You'll see the other images there. You can customize this. This is like a browser. You can make the browser window bigger or smaller. I'm going to select that. Same thing here. We'll just keep all this the same. But instead of use ICC profile, click on advanced black and white photo. And this brings up this dialog, which has been in the Epson driver for many years, but it was buried and a little difficult to find. And sorry about that. When it comes to the tone, I wish they would change this. That's actual gamma for those that worked in a darkroom. You remember if you increase your time or temperature, you would change your gamma or your contrast index. And I wish they would have put in the old contrast indexes of 1.6, 1.8, 2.0, et cetera. But the engineers chose to use this. And ironically, if you do get into this, if you're doing black and white, the default is darker, and you really want the default you really want to be set on dark. That's the correct gamma setting. But you can tone in the advanced black and white mode very easily by, if you can see this, moving this target around in this window. So you can certainly keep it at 0 in that area. But if you want to go into a sepia direction, and for William there, who may have made sepia prints in the darkroom and it smelled like the worst rotten eggs, fireworks aftermath, it's a lot better digitally these days. But when you did sepia toning in the darkroom, it was like you threw it in all these chemicals, and it was like bam, it was sepia, and that was it. Here you have control. If you want less sepia, it's more towards the center. More, if you want to go and mimic cyanotypes from decades ago, you can go in this direction. Some people like gold toning, some people like to go into the red. You have all of this control. And then once you find something you like, and again, remember, calibrate your monitor, because when you calibrate your monitor, if you set a tone here that you like, then you're not going to be surprised by some tone that doesn't match what's coming out of the printer. Then just note what the horizontal and vertical axes are in those numbers and write it down, and you can always go back to that. And then you would simply hit print. And this is just an easier way to do professional quality printing through Epson printers. But again, calibrate your monitor. When possible, we recommend shooting in RAW, opening up in ProPhoto RGB, 16-bit, so that you have all that information. And even if you're doing black and white, do the same thing, because black and white is color. And if you have all of that color to work with, those are tones and values that you're not clipping.
Did you shoot this in color and convert to black and white, or did you shoot it in black and white?
So again, you're thinking a little bit like the darkroom days. And this, when I used to walk around when I was in the Valley, and I had my Olympus OM1, and I had 2 of them. I had a color, I had for Tri-X, and I had it for whatever I was shooting at the time, Kodachrome. When you're shooting in RAW, you always shoot in color.
Okay.
And then you can convert later. There are cameras that you can dedicate and change the sensor to a black and white sensor.
Yeah.
I would argue, why would you want to limit yourself to that? There are some, and this is, in fact, I was just on a Zoom with a really well-known professional photographer who has converted her cameras to a color infrared sensor and a black and white infrared sensor. And those are kind of specialty things. But yeah, RAW is RAW. If you start in color, you can convert to what we call black and white. But remember, black and white is color.
Yeah.
Especially if you worked in darkroom, you use color filters to adjust the different wavelengths depending on what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of a little bit of easy printing. Depending on time, I can go through some of the latest printers that are out there and what they mean. Jay, how are we doing time-wise?
Time-wise, it's later for you than it is for us. I don't want to.
Oh, it's not a problem.
I don't want to limit what you have to offer.
Let me show you.
I'm enjoying it, so that's what matters. Let's keep going.
So these are the latest desktop professional printers that are on the market. And this is the P700 is 13 inches wide. The P900 is 17 inches wide.
$45 a line, or buy the gig plan for $14 a gig. Call 844-230-8821.
Well, the idea is we can mix and match plans is great.
Yeah.
Okay, I fixed that.
Okay, thank you. If any of you have previous generation printers like the P600, the P700 replace that, or the P800, the P900 replace that, or 3880, or even the 3800s from a few years ago. Compared to other printers, other printers look pretty cool. These look like kind of like hi-fi components. There's a really new, cool, sleek look to them. There's advantages with wireless. there's a new 10-channel print head, which is a big deal because there's no longer switching between the two blacks, photo black and matte black, if you're using matte papers or photo black papers. But what a lot of people love about these printers is there's a new internal light. It's one of those things, if you're in marketing, it's a feature without a benefit, meaning, you know, there's really no real reason that it's there other than it's fun to watch the printing. These are also relatively small printers for the large sizes they put out. So a footprint that's much smaller, you know, for many, even professionals working in New York. A lot of people no longer have studios. They work out of their apartments. Footprint is really important, and you can do rolls on these printers. The P900 is a little bit more of a professional machine, and you need an adapter for rolls to keep dust out. For those of you that have never seen a print head, this is what one looks like. The droplets that come out of these printers are 1.5 picoliters, or as small as 1.5 picoliters. And since we're doing a lot of trivia tonight, this one's a great one. A picoliter is 1/1,000,000th of a liter.
Wow.
Or as professionals like to say, it's a really, really, really tiny dot. But what makes Epson prints look photographic is not so much just that it can make dots that small, but that there's variable droplet sizes depending on the image. So that's what gives things that continuous tone look and doesn't look digital. This comes up a lot. What's the difference between the Epson technology and the other technologies that are out there? One was mentioned. Epson uses something called micro piezo, and the other company that was mentioned that uses thermal systems. So micro piezo comes from watches. You may be familiar with Seiko, and we are the Seiko Epson Corporation. You might find this interesting considering the Olympics just took place. The 1964 Olympics, I think that the official timing contract was always with Longines, but since they were in Japan, they wanted to go with a Japanese company and Seiko. And the engineers wanted to find a way if they could print somehow the winning times from all the different races and events. And they found that they took the micro piezo crystal from a watch, and they could actually squirt ink through it in order to make, you know, very rudimentary prints. And they named this device the electronic printer, and soon realized that this could be a very large opportunity. So Epson means son of the electronic printer. Epson.
Oh,
that's right.
cool. Is it true that HP was the first inkjet printer? See, I'm a computer guy. I started in 1988, and I think Inkjet started in 1984 to replace the dot matrix.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Well, I
But
think
I
it was
do-
HP, and I think it was called a ThinkJet printer.
That's their marketing term, but the that manufacturer and the one before, they use thermal systems, not micro piezo. The advantage of
Okay.
piezo is that variable droplet size.
Yes.
And
Okay.
It accurately places ink on paper. With a thermal system, heat is used to change the viscosity of the ink to fire it out of the nozzles. And when you do
Steve,
that,
aren't you glad I asked that question?
I'm getting all these great.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
And when you fire the ink out of the printer, it creates satelliting at a microscopic level. And then you have to use something called air diffusion, which is essentially, these are different algorithms to try to mimic and hide this overspray, for lack of a better term. So inherently thermal systems are very good, and the technology has improved dramatically, but they'll never be as good for photographic work because of this explosion of ink on paper. And they have a fixed droplet size. They may, in marketing, say, oh, we have X amount more nozzles or more droplets we can put down, but they're the same size instead of that variable droplet size. And the print heads are consumables. They have to be replaced on a regular basis, where Epson has designed the print head to last the life of the printer. So those are the fundamental differences, not to get into us and them, et cetera, but just an understanding education-wise about the technology and what's under the hood. for those that have done a lot of printing, the changes here with the amount of inks, there's 10 inks in this printer. This is the P700 and P900. We've added violet. The violet actually comes from the pre-press industry, but if you plot that three-dimensionally in that lab color space, you'll say that it really doesn't affect violet colors. It does improve darker blues. So for a lot of nature photographers, they're telling us that, that the light that they're always after, which is always well past sunset, deep, deep blues, this ink set expands that color gamut and allows us to capture and put that on paper. And the joke is that the gray and light gray, which is the G and LG that's in that box there, those aren't new. They're just renamed because previously they were called light black and light black. And every professional would always come up to me in a trade show and say, and what's the difference between light black and gray? And then we had a big laugh. So we just finally changed it to gray and light gray. This is that carbon black mode that I was mentioning earlier. On high gloss papers, which are not as popular in this country as they are in Asia. But since the subject of the dark room has come up in older processes, you may remember something called Cibachrome, maybe from the 70s and the 80s. And on high gloss papers, this technology reminds me of a Cibachrome. It gives you that wet, glossy black that it was really difficult to get on those papers. Has no effect on any other paper, but in those, the carbon black mode is pretty remarkable. And these are, just shows the media handling with what you can do with sheets, what you can do with rolls, what you can do with thick papers. And for those people who like to do panoramas, depending on the software you have, that's all capable.
It's a P900 with these 10 ink cartridges. What kind of yield can people expect? And I know that's hard because you're going to talk about different size printouts, but let's just go with the most common printout size. What would that be? I don't print at home. What would that be? You said something about 22-inch before.
Yeah, I think you answered the question for me. There is no common thing.
Okay, so let's say 17, what was it, 1722? Is that what that size was? Just curious, what kind of yield can one expect before they need to swap out cartridges?
I print a lot of 8x10, so.
I can't answer it because
different
depends
colors.
on the types of images. Are you using putting a lot of those pastel images like the hood ornament, or a lot of those saturated images from the urban identity?
Yes, it's not an easy question to answer, but I'm going to ask it again a different way.
Okay.
Let's say that black and white photo of the chair that you needed to run off 20 copies of that. Would you be okay with the ink supply from fresh to 20 copies and have leftover, or would you have ran to the store to refill? I know it's tough, but I got to give people what they're asking for. This is a question that came to me on my own text.
Jay?
Yes.
I have an Epson 3880, and I'll tell you, that ink lasts forever.
There you go.
No matter how many prints I make, I'm surprised how long these cartridges last. And I have the big cartridge.
That's good to hear. It's not like they're running out.
No, not at all.
Yeah, and it's Saturday night and all the stores are closed.
I glanced over this, but to the point about the 3880, the 3880 uses 80 milliliter ink cartridges. And I think maybe that's the question for those that are new to printing and they're used to these smaller cartridges. These are professional level printers. So on the P900, we've reduced it to 50 milliliters. But a lot of the earlier single use, all-in-one type printers, you can be in the 10 to 12 milliliter range. It's all different now with EcoTank. So there may have been this, gosh, I get things out, but these are professional, especially when you get into the P900 50 milliliter cartridges. I know you want me to come up with a number, and I just can't.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I won't push you that hard.
Dan, I have a question.
Yeah.
Dan?
Yeah.
The Epson print layout, will that only work with the new printers? I mentioned I have a 3880 and I'm running High Sierra on a Macintosh. And I just checked the website on Epson. I couldn't find mention of it anywhere.
Well, let me pull up that and I'll show you where that is. I don't know the answer, but let's look it up.
Okay.
And all you have to do is just Google Epson print layout.
I think I tried that.
And then we also want to know if your
Oh,
ink
look how
is
easy that
available.
was.
We also want to know if your ink is available on Amazon. If someone's in a crunch position or situation, they know they have a project coming up, could they buy ink on Amazon easily?
B&H or Noah's place.
So I have to give you the, we always recommend any
Of course,
professional
of course.
dealer for
I
these
know-
types of professional products.
I know.
Here's
I
Epson,
know where's the place to go. I get that.
Here's Epson Print Layout website where you can download the software, and it works on Windows, Mac, and also there's a new software I'll show you in a minute for
Oh, it supports
iPhones and
900.
iPads. Down here is the printers it supports. So unfortunately, not the 3880.
No, I see that. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
That's sad.
Yeah. So it's starting with the last generation. The 3880 is 2 generations past in 17-inch.
Dan, one more question.
Yeah.
When do you think the P5000 will become a new model and have the nozzle for the black cartridge, you know, the gloss on the mat, just like the P900? When do you have any idea when that's in the queue?
So you're the token professional guy, I can tell, right?
Well, I try.
Here's for everyone, I don't know if you can see behind me. This is a P5000.
Right.
And there's 2 versions of the P5000, the standard version, the commercial version. This is really designed for pre-press proofing in many ways. And there's a spectrophotometer can go on here for big high volume pre-press shops. And its predecessor was the 4900. But I don't have any information at this time about any upgrade.
But that should happen, right? I would think that would happen.
The only thing that I can say with, and I don't mean this to sound facetious in any way, is that Epson is always doing R&D, and the likelihood of new products from Epson is very high in the future.
All right.
I don't know.
Good answer. Good answer.
Again, I'm trying, you know, I gotta be careful on a trade show. I can have a yuck about it, but you know, this is being recorded, so you know, I'm sure someone's gonna, you know. But no, I can't speak to that. But I'm glad you asked about the P5000. That's a production machine, along with, you know, when you get into 24 and 44 inches wide.
Right,
Right,
right.
so I'm going to ask an interesting question here. We're talking about a P900. I didn't look at price point. I don't want to look at price point right now because that's an offer from Hunts, and I want everyone to see that the after meeting. What I am curious about, though, I'm looking, I can't, you know, the chat sometimes moves all by itself. Did you know that? The whole thing just scrolls by itself. What was it called? Think Tank? If someone wants to print photos at home and they're not really into it being perfect, just a rendering of a photograph they took, yeah, that's a really horrible question to be asking. I see it now. I see the looks on people's faces. But they just want to produce a color reproduction of a photograph that they enjoy. Even if they just print it on 8.5 by 11 paper from Staples with a color inkjet printer. You hear where I'm saying here? Can they do that with a less expensive printer as like just a disposable printout, not something to be framed, not something to be, but they want to share it with a friend and they want it to look okay.
My colleagues in different divisions at Epson make a whole variety of printers. You're going to see retailers. The latest line is called Eco Tank, which addresses that people always felt these cartridges were too small and constantly getting, like we were talking earlier. And a lot of people love those printers because for the occasional photograph, they're pretty good. You know, you don't have all the control, you don't have the color management. But for many things, it's okay. And then you have the printer for other things. You can scan and you can copy and you can do it.
All right, well, that answers the question better than I stated it. Thank you, Dan.
Okay.
Dan,
Yeah.
I want to thank you for, you were very informative. Certain things I'm going to try now, especially with shooting law. I'm going to give that a try.
Yeah.
Information
You
to me was
is
very
it
good, and I'm going to have to get going now as it is. But
okay?
this meeting was something else, really, really very informative. I
Well,
think
glad you liked it,
everyone else-
William.
Okay.
I'm
We're
gonna
glad
take
you
it out
liked
to
it,
you
William.
guys, and we'll catch
And-
you next month.
And there's a whole world there for you in RAW. There really is. And embrace it. You'll be editing all night, but embrace it.
And for simple printing, I have an ET 2760. Is there an easy way to see the screen? The screen on the printer is so tiny.
This is an EcoTank printer.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not familiar with those because those are consumer machines. So I would assume they all. Are you printing from the screen itself or from a driver on the computer?
the driver on the computer,
On a Windows or Mac?
Mac.
You should be able to see all the controls for that.
Okay,
I mean, it'll have much more limited control, but you should be a problem.
Dan, do you have a checklist, a workflow from post-production, the time you're saying, that's what I want to print, on through to the workflow? You talked about running from top to bottom on the driver settings.
Oh,
Do you have that printed someplace where there's a workflow, or is that just your method? It makes the most sense to go from top to bottom. That's how
no,
they
it's
do
just
it.
how software is designed. It's how I was fortunate to meet with Thomas Knoll, who invented Photoshop, and then he was frustrated with other manufacturers' raw processors from cameras. He was on his a vacation in Italy, and he just stayed in the hotel and wrote Adobe Camera Raw. That weekend, he says that may have led to why he got divorced, but he designed it that way to work top down.
I would not doubt it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a story.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about how do you make aesthetic decisions on what you print. That's a whole other thing.
Well, that's a whole other thing, and that's everybody's an artist. And
Right.
I take pictures for me, and if you like them, that's a bonus.
Right.
And some of your work is very beautiful. Do you want to share a link with us so that people can see your?
Well, primarily,
in between business meetings? That is a wonderful set that you have. Your portfolio is wonderful.
well, I've been primarily putting stuff on Instagram, but my website is, yeah, I'll put it here. Yeah. It's just a. And my
Excellent.
Instagram is
Dan the Man.
yeah, but for better or worse, Instagram is kind of where the action is.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. But you're only looking at the sRGB color space. Got to remember that.
But now you know.
Trying to be funny.
I was gonna pull up my. I'll just show you something really. How many people, I'm just curious, are on Instagram?
I am.
Yeah.
On one with me.
Yeah, I'd say about half of us.
From a marketing standpoint, I'm working on a bunch of stuff. This is my personal Instagram. That's some of that car stuff and stuff when I was traveling. But yeah, I was doing videos in Asia. It's all between meetings.
Love it.
And that car place is really good.
Yeah, have you been there?
No, I've been wanting to go for the last
Heard
couple of
about it.
years.
Yeah, it's in the middle. It's Nowheresville.
It's in the city of White, Georgia.
It
That's the name
is,
of the
yeah.
town.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of, it's, yeah. Population, I don't know. It's
How
gotta
long were
be,
you there? Were you there a day? Did you go 2 days or just in between meetings? Was that
I was there for about 3 hours.
3 hours? Okay.
And did they charge $25?
Yeah, which was like nothing. And
Nothing,
I,
that's right, yeah.
but the thing is, he's a very religious guy. I remember that. And he's also a painter, runs it. And, I said, geez, is there any way, to come back, I could come in at like 5 in the morning when the light's good. And it was like,
Right,
no,
right.
no,
No, yeah.
there are rules, but I'll show you their website.
I think that place started as a family farm, and then they had stuff that just broke down, and they just kept it, and pretty soon.
Yeah, but there's a lot of trees growing out of cars.
Right, right.
All in these areas, and
That's insane. Trees growing out of cars.
but I always wanted to go back with models and stuff, but it's always the light's wrong because it's too late.
Yes, yeah.
Look, that light's terrible. It's too bright. You want to get there, dusk on. There's nothing unique about it. And a lot of people overdo it with the HDR. This is
Well, we need to make it worth that guy's while. We need to come as a group with our models.
Yeah,
just
that's right.
own the park for 3 hours.
right.
No, all day, all day.
Well, that's okay. I'm just saying, we need to have a talk
Look
with
at-
them. We're
looks like the price.
And make it worth your while.
The price
Look,
went up
you know-
$30.
Yeah, I see, look what it says there, no pictures, less money than pictures.
Yeah, but if you take a camera, if you take a cell phone, do they count that as a
Well,
camera?
I'm sure they're always having a fight.
That's funny.
You want me to tell you, and then I should probably sign off, getting late here. Here's my favorite place to go. And I'm not recommending this because you really have to can be a little treacherous. But it's in California. Called East Jesus.
Yeah, by
yeah.
the slabs.
Oh, yeah, we know this.
You know this place?
A lot of us do.
And I think it's amazing out there. But it's
So
they've
it's
kind of
recommended by Dano.
it's I love they used to have a thing about rules about photographing there. They've updated their website. The East Jesus Survival Guide. I always love this.
That's good that they have that
Well, it's
associated with the slabs. Yeah.
look, some of the copy in here, like
Wow, it only goes to prove they've been sued a couple of times.
yeah, but
They're obviously had litigation a couple of times because they have a lot of rules.
but this bottle wall is amazing, and
The bottle wall I heard is amazing.
yeah, so I love going down there.
Bring
Oh,
us
got it.
up.
Gotta
like
do
this.
that.
East Jesus isn't particularly child friendly. Everything is dangerous.
Not just for children.
I haven't been there in years, but I have to ask, do they still have the nude shooting range?
Oh, I don't know.
I didn't go there. But the sign was there and I thought, yeah, no, I got a camera. I don't think that would be a wise thing to do.
Well, there's the Slab City, and then all the way at the end is East Jesus.
Yeah.
And but it's I tell people, I like hanging out in tough neighborhoods and going to places people wouldn't go. But even there, I was a little uneasy, and I remember saying I'm going to do some drive-by shootings, which is roll the window down with a telephone.
Dan, you're on a really good topic here, and we've had debates about this many times. And if we can go off of the Epson roadway onto a tangent here for just a moment. You like the rough neighborhoods. We do too. We like to go downtown LA and some places that aren't exactly safe, but we have a concern over our camera gear. Are you ever concerned, and do you only travel with a buddy system, or do you go alone? And what is your advice to us as photographers? Leave the bag at home, take your one lens or one body and enjoy your day?
In this
Uh,
country, I go alone and I don't do anything stupid, and I don't go into places.
course not.
Like, you're crazy. Internationally, I often will hire a fixer to take me places, and they can be relatively inexpensive, and it's like well worth the dollars. And they can get you in and out of the right kind of places, and
Right.
but yeah, my only advice is if you're going into if you're someone looking like me and you're going to go into a certain kind of neighborhood, you just want to kind of blend in. You don't want to be driving in fancy cars and looking expensive, and you don't want, and I remember when I was in India, we were there doing printing programs, and the deal that we had was we're going to work 18 hours a day one day, then we need a driver and a fixer to take us shooting the next day. And we were in these slums with unbelievable poverty, and it was just photographically, it was amazing. And then we were being interviewed in a news program, and I was in the green room talking with someone who was involved with the slums, and I was telling about this guilt that I felt about I'm this rich American by their standards, and just taking pictures, and he said you shouldn't feel guilty about that. You should show people what it's like to help educate others, and also show the joy that a lot of people have with very little. So when I don't go into what might be considered difficult neighborhoods just for the sake of it, but I always think that there's incredible beauty and interest in things that a lot of people walk by, and that's what I'm doing.
And you're a storyteller. You need to share that. So
I'm not there to exploit in any way. I'm there to find interesting things that a lot of people miss. And often they can be in these neighborhoods where people have tough lives and don't see it. And it's a way to show them what's really there. I can, not that this is a tough neighborhood. I was changing planes at Washington Dulles 6-8 weeks ago. And it was early morning flight. And if you know that airport, and it's the famous, can't pronounce his name, Sarah's famous architect, but everyone knows that building, and everyone's on the outside looking at it. I'm on the inside, and I just saw this amazing reflection on the freshly waxed floor of the building. And I'm shooting this, and this flight attendant came over to me. We all have masks on, so everything's a little muffled. Can I ask what you're doing? I said, well, look at this amazing reflection. And she had been through that airport, for 10 years, and she never saw it. And said, oh, yeah, I never really noticed that. And she gets out her iPhone. Of course, the iPhone, it just picks up the highlights and it's just kind of blowing it out. And I said, oh, look, and I just kind of tapped on it to change the exposure. And it was like, she saw something for the first time that she had been walking by for 15 years.
That's an awesome story. That's so meaningful too, because that's what we do. We capture moments. And I don't care if you do it in RAW or JPEG, just capture the moment. That's important. That's important. Yeah, you need to see things, right? And you've got a new follower on IG, okay? And we need to try to see things through different people's eyes, especially a fellow artist. And just love your work, Dan. And
Thank you.
I speak for everyone when I say this. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hope it wasn't too technical and too many weird three-dimensional color things, but
you checked all the boxes. You're very pleasant, very well spoken, filled with information. You did the Q&A during. Love it. Thank you so much. I'm going to have you back.
Okay.
Yep. We're going to talk. You got a new
thanks.
play.
Well, maybe we can meet live someday when this thing ends, and I can go visit. I can be Valley Boy.
Well, we'll go to Tommy's. Okay. We'll have a Tommy's burger together. The whole group is invited. It'll be fun. You're awesome. You're absolutely welcome to stay for the VPC membership meeting. We have a few photos to share.
Well,
I'll get started.
A little after 11 here, so I should probably sign off.
I'll get started pretty quick. I'll make sure that you have access to the YouTube video.
Okay.
And you can start from 8:04 p.m., whatever it is, wherever the. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to sign off. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Wow, I really enjoyed that. I hope you did too. What a great presenter. How you guys doing? Does
Okay.
anybody need a bathroom break? I can put the recording on pause. We could take a minute and go rate our refrigerators.
Let's
Get
go.
started with our real meeting.
Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, we're ready to go. Let me do a screen share here. We all went to Adamson / Malibu Lagoon, and most of us knew that the special topic for photos was to share those photos at the next VPC meeting. So that's what I have for you. I'm going to do that as soon as I can figure out how to do that. Share sound, optimize video clips, click share. You're looking at my hummingbird, are you not?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll go down to the bottom here and find that. Oh, that's not what I want to do. Okay, we have to edit this video. Oh my goodness. Give me a moment, I have to put things on pause. Okay. All right, now we'll see if we can get the other facet of the, oh, look at that, it worked. Okay, so here's our first photo, and our first photo is brought to us by Bill Robbins, Where the Water Comes From. I'm glad it had a title because I didn't really notice right away the water.
Okay, well, I saw, I composed, I clicked. I don't know what else to say about it. It caught my eye, and I thought it was rather interesting. The eternally drooling man, and that's about it.
Good photo, Bill. Good eye.
Thank you.
Anybody else comments on it? You know, the makers don't have to comment on their own photos. It's their choice, their prerogative tonight. We're really just sharing and enjoying the Adamson house and the Malibu Lagoon and the Malibu Pier in the 15
Colors are really,
yeah, go ahead.
colors are really lovely. I mean, it's it looks like it. I wasn't there, unfortunately, but it looks like it might be a little saturated, but it's really well done.
No, that's the pro color space.
Oh, the pro color. Okay.
It's a JPEG. Hey,
I'm
Bill, what
just
if,
wondering where he got a
They
picture
have-
of me in the morning.
Bill, what if you took out the eyes and put in a pair of real eyes? And they could be your eyes. It's your picture.
Would be really freaky. Then I'd have nightmares.
I like it though.
Thank you.
I might put a little vignette, slight vignette.
That's a good idea. Yeah. One of the things that bothered me was at the bottom, I wanted the water, but that seam in the tile, the gap in the tile where the, you know. how the
It's
grout-
okay.
I was wondering what it looks like if you crop that out.
Yeah.
You cross the water at the end of his beard.
Yeah.
Photoshop would fix that.
That's true. I could have done that, but
Yeah, it would have fixed it.
yeah.
Dog likes it.
Dog likes it.
Very
Myself,
nice.
Dogs are gonna go berserk.
I'm gonna move on to the next photo by no other than Bill Robbins. A Malibu moment to herself.
Nicely
Nice.
done.
Very calm.
Good
Thank you.
composition.
Thank you.
It's almost like Dali paintings.
Say again?
It's almost Dali paintings. He
Hmm.
has the paintings with his wife, staying exactly like this.
I didn't see her, Bill.
I happened to see her, and then I cropped it so that, one of the things I'd like to say, I was always told if you're gonna cut the top of somebody's head off or part of somebody's head off, do enough that it's plain that you did it on purpose. And I take that to where I crop things like trees and, palm trees and stuff.
That's a nice crop.
Yeah, it's a good.
Yeah,
I like it.
And look
the
how
only
well,
thing that maybe to take out would be the palm leaves on the upper right-hand side of the tree that aren't really connected so much to the tree.
Good point. I also, when I looked at this, I wished I would have stopped down a little bit so I'd get more depth of field on the water.
But she's gazing off into the distance. You're seeing her view and wondering, what is she thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The water is almost secondary here.
Thank you.
yeah, and that's really what the sky was when we were there, wasn't it? It was kind of a gray day.
Yeah. And actually, I kind of like that. It controlled the shadows a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe you might want to put in a Carnival cruise ship, right? Never mind.
It's always one.
And our next, yeah, our next photo, I love the title, is by Ellen Zuckerman. It's, oh, wait a second, now you're gonna play? That's funny, now it's gonna play, I found it. Ellen Zuckerman brought us Turn, Turn, Turn by the Birds.
Oh, boy.
TU or
I just
TE?
dated myself.
We got it.
Nice picture.
Thank you.
I like it.
So sharp.
I
Very,
love
very
you, ma'am.
I
The
love it.
shadow too there in the still water is, I mean, you couldn't order it like that. That's great.
Thank you.
The bokeh in the background is beautiful.
I think it's interesting.
One of the
chaos of the birds, it's still calming.
Ellen,
One
I
of the
will be
things that-
I will a little bit crop from the top. You don't need all this stuff. And the top portion, a little bit crop down.
one of the things to create maybe a little bit more depth to it would be to take the water that is just after the birds and darken it a little bit with a brush, bring it down just a little bit. It might create more spaces as you move back into the picture, more depth.
Okay.
A little more
It might.
contrast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great suggestions.
It's
Yeah, I just
interesting.
loved watching the birds take off and land. That was really fascinating.
It's interesting. I'm a little bit on the fence about these particular photographs and the amount of post-processing that was done to them. And for whatever reason, the maker chose to do that amount. I too, when you'll see my photos, I did a lot of changes, made a lot of drastic changes in the photo to present it as a representation of what I saw or wanted to see. I like the variety of all 15 photos here. We have an experience from being there, and this is what we saw, to I found this photo out of the 800 photos that I took home with me. Jay asked for a photo representative of the day we spent together. And I picked this one and I worked on it for X number of minutes or hours. And this is my presentation. So I like that we get to see the whole gamut. These are great suggestions, though. It's hard to ignore them. To change the color of the water behind that row of birds in the back. I wouldn't have thought on my own to do that. That's an excellent suggestion. I'm also curious, Leonid,
Yeah.
how much across the top would you crop here? Would you get rid
like this, below this bird?
below this bird?
Yeah.
So, okay, so,
Yeah, this bird doesn't do anything for this picture at all. It's only take you. No, it's.
no, I know what you're asking. I know what you're asking. Don't worry about that. It just, the program was set from another time.
Yeah. Yeah, now you can see a real bird and everything. Your eye doesn't go anywhere else.
Yeah, the focus is more on the birds, which is what the goal was. So
Exactly, this is a goal.
Great.
What she wanted to show
Yeah.
this. Because
Great.
otherwise, this light stuff, sky, and the bird on the top is only take your attention from this.
And if we're
Very
gonna go this distance and have this kind of powwow here and speak of these things, I would have cloned out these birdies here.
Yeah, you will take out
Because
this bird.
this should be the last bird,
Right, exactly.
and he should have space to fly into. And these, if you're gonna Photoshop this,
Yeah,
then I would take those out. And these guys, they're just fine, because they're like coming into frame.
okay.
You're reading Hebrew, but they're coming into frame.
One more thing, whatever Jay offered to take this piece is create empty space here. In this case, you will have movement that the birds are flying to the empty space.
Yeah.
Right, right.
I like that. Cool. I'm trying to take this session of sharing a little different direction once I saw this photo. This is good. This is good. Do you enjoy that? Membership? Do you enjoy that? There's 20 of us here. Is this
Yes.
beneficial?
Yes.
Okay. A little bit about what we were talking about earlier. And now without hesitancy, I'm going to share a photo from someone who was there not on the same day. And we really missed her, but she had prior engagement and she went a few days earlier. And I'm proud of her for doing that. Helene Cummins, Yellow Roses of Malibu. Which is, here I am telling you, and I'm in this annotation mode and it won't let me out and I can't show you the photo. Bam. We're not saving this crop.
Yeah, oh, that is cool.
It's beautiful.
Good job. I like that.
Thank you.
Were those
Well,
flowers,
fun.
Melanie is perfect.
are those flowers there on purpose or were they there?
Those flowers were there
Wow.
and it
Oh.
caught
And they
my
did-
eye.
And they just happen to match the umbrella. Wow.
A little bit. They were yellow. The umbrella was yellow and the other colors. I did use Photoshop, obviously, because I made the rest black and white. I wanted them to just stand out.
Ellen,
Yeah,
did you
you
add
achieved that.
My, huh?
You
Did you
achieved
add
that.
roses?
No, the roses were right there where you see them.
You know what you should do if you will make shadow from these roses in the direction and some.
You know what? The
Cool.
shadow is there. You just got to look for it. It's one of them. You can see the
Oh, I see.
shadow.
uh,
Yeah, I
Make,
didn't.
Yeah, it's
make
in
the
the
shadow that you can see it.
I didn't mess with the shadows. I didn't move anything. The only thing I did, the woman that's laying flat, her toes were kind of cut off the edge of the picture. So I added the extra picture and added a little bit of toes. And I didn't have another engagement. I was totally out of town.
No, it's good. It's good. But try at home to add from the roses a little bit shape. It will.
Yeah, I don't know.
It will create volume 3D.
Will
Try it.
create what?
More of a 3D.
Okay.
Love the logo, Helene.
What?
Love the watermark.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
You even have a bird.
Hummingbird.
The thing is, if you add in the shadow, then it looks so fake because the lighting was from the top. It should look like high noon, right? Look at the lighting. If you add the shadow, where you put the shadow? I mean,
Yeah, the light is.
the light come from the top.
Very
Yeah,
good point, Tom.
but the roses is inclined, so they will have some shadows.
Well, you know
that's
what?
not much you can do about it.
I didn't get rid of the shadows. If you don't see a shadow, there was no shadow.
And I think what we're talking about here is not that there's something wrong with the photo. I think we're talking about an artistic, an artistic.
To add the shadows.
Yeah.
So it's just something that he is suggesting.
No, I get it, but I mess with pictures a lot.
No, I get what Kong is saying.
Yeah.
I get what the artistic mind of Leonid is saying.
Yeah.
And I love the photo the way it is. It has such tremendous impact.
I agree.
I like it. Helene, in the original photo, in the original color photo, were there the shadows more prominent of the flowers?
I didn't get rid of any shadows.
No, but okay, so you didn't see shadows in the color photo, or you saw them, or?
No, just like this.
Yeah, there are no shadows anywhere. Even this right here is a matte. It's not even a shadow. And under that matte is the shadow, the only shadow that I can
The
find.
only shadow is right here with the thermos under the right here.
Yeah, barely. I mean, even the inside of the shoe is dark because the umbrella is on top of it.
Well, if you look at the roses, Jay, can you blow the roses up? The right side of them are darker than the left side.
They
so
are.
I guess that's a shadow, but you know, I didn't get rid of any shadows from the ground.
I think maybe it's because it is band and it does scatter light a lot. It reflects a lot of light and it scatters light. So it may have filled in the shadows or something.
You know, what I'm curious about is if we had shadows everywhere, if we'd be talking about taking them out.
That's a good point.
This photo has some really, really good impact. I love the use of color in the way you used it. This is awesome. Tell me about the software you use.
I use Photoshop CS6 Extended and Topaz.
That's it.
Topaz Suite. Yeah.
Wow. Didn't use the Photoshop elements you and I bought?
No, I have CS6 Extended that I
This is
bought.
really cool. I like this photo.
And I have kind of been addicted to Topaz Studio AI Clear, came with it, and I use that. If you have any little noise in there, it takes it out, makes it a little sharper. I don't use a DSLR, so my pictures tend not to be quite as sharp as you with the big cameras, but I make up for it.
You do. You're a Photoshop queen. Leonid Sheckman.
Oh.
Forgotten Lake. Now we get to pick on him. Oh, that's not Forgotten Lake. That's not Forgotten Lake. Okay. So hold on a second. Hold on a second. I'm going to have to read from a different list. We're not going to pick on Leonid. We're going to pick on Jay Ross for Beach Body. Not everybody's speechless now.
It's nail polish on the toes.
There's no nail polish.
How can you see that? My gosh.
Kidding, I'm kidding.
Did she pose for you, or this was just a natural shot?
This is what happens when you have a really big Zoom. And this is what happens when your friend Martin Briones is behind her, taking pictures at the Malibu Lagoon. And you don't realize he's behind her until you get home. And this is the only picture you can salvage by going high key.
No. And I see her shadow.
It's a nice treatment, Jay.
Say again?
Nice treatment, good placement.
Thank you.
Great color. Nice job.
Thank you. Appreciate hearing that.
You might try, did you bring the shadows up when you were going high key?
I brought him up and then back down.
Okay.
And I worked on this photograph. If I worked on it 6 minutes, I'm exaggerating. I really did this quick. I just felt it was appropriate. It was Malibu. It's a beach body. The goal was to get Martin out of it.
Which you succeeded.
Good job.
I can't believe that Martin dressed in green this time.
He's
He's got
watching
some
now. He's
camouflage,
watching. Be
you know.
nice. Be nice.
He's
No,
got some amazing camouflage, that Martin.
actually, he was in the background of a lot of my pictures, and I didn't notice until after the fact.
Okay, Jay, I gotta ask, was she posing for you or somebody else?
She was posing for somebody else,
Okay,
and it was their own photo shoot. It was done with a makeup kind of girl. There's a lot of touching going on to get this woman or girl to look just right for the photos that this other girl was taking. So I'm not sure what it was all about, but I was at the Adminson house backyard, and they were way out on the beach. I'm telling you, this was done with a really long lens.
Jay,
Yes,
is this type of image okay to post in the group Facebook?
yeah, I don't have a problem with it. This is not nudity.
Okay,
It's sexy is all.
Okay.
If you want to interpret it that way.
just checking.
And I also had my reservations. You'll notice her hands over her face. She's not identifiable.
yeah.
I mean, she knows her body and she would yell at me if she saw this picture, but you're not going to know who she is unless you know who she is. Can't pick her out of a lineup. And now I need to look at my other list. Jay Ross presented the next photo, and it's called, and this is cute because it's a spelling thing, peer to peer, P-E-E-R to P-I-E-R. Get it?
Yeah.
Peer to peer.
I just like the interaction of the two on the left there. And I was thrilled with the fact that I got a perfect horizon. Didn't have to straighten it in the Lightroom.
Of the sailboat.
It's what we saw that day, isn't it? It's very,
Yes.
very much what we saw that day.
So who is the peer, the P-E-E-R?
The two.
Those two people that are interacting with one another,
Oh,
they know each other. They're peers.
okay, got it.
You also have a pigeon in there.
I do, yes.
Where do you see that?
On the left side,
Oh,
it's a peeping pigeon.
So it's a
And just a fraction of a second later, he actually glanced over to see what we were all doing.
Yeah.
Because there was quite a few of us.
Yeah.
And this was a very forgotten about space on the pier. There's only these three people. It's like they had a great spot.
Yeah.
So you were peering at them.
Exactly.
I think
Any room for improvement on this photo?
Oh,
I think if you straighten the horizon.
it is a little crooked though. It doesn't seem to go up on, Jay doesn't seem to go up on the left a little, or is that me?
I think it's you.
No,
You're really gonna go there, huh?
No, we want this show to work.
I think that you could bring the highlights down on the fence right here, the top of the fence. Seems like it's just a little bit too bright. And then take a look at your sensor, because there's some sensor spots on there.
Been fixed since then.
Yeah, okay, because I know I had a big problem with mine and I had to send it away to Nikon for them to fix
Yeah, I noticed it and took care of it. Thank you for, yeah. But like I said a little bit earlier, and I don't know if you were back on with us, Mike, some of these photos, a lot of time was spent to make them right for presentation. And then this one, for example, I mean, I don't think I spent any time with it. I don't think I cropped it. I think this is out of camera. I had 6 shots that were taken. His head was turned the wrong way in several of them. I like that I have his profile here. And I don't like that the handrail comes out on a corner. And now that you pointed out the brightness, yeah, it is hot. But I lack in Lightroom skills how to fix this without affecting the rest of the photo. So that's what I'm going to learn, and I'll use this as as a test bed for my.
Yeah, the highlight slider should absolutely take care of that without messing up the rest of the picture too much.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can mask it.
There's some things in this program which is not Lightroom. I think it talks about adjusting levels or a lighting. Just gonna see if I could play with that a bit. It came up on another monitor. Are you seeing this? Give me a second.
Those highlights down at the bottom there.
You said to take it to the left. Don't know why this won't go full screen. What is it doing here?
It's keep going. There you go.
There you go.
Well, it helped a little, but not.
It may be that it's just the information's gone. It may just be
it's kind of blown out. See, I felt good about having the milling on the boards here. I saw those lines, you know what I mean? The detail on the board there.
Mm-hmm.
That was exciting to me. But yeah, this is just, it's not a photograph, it's a snapshot. I enjoyed the moment. I think I could have done differently had I planned to show this, but.
Well, you do an adjustment on the JPEG.
I'm
You do
sorry.
adjustment on the JPEG, so you're not gonna be able to.
Yeah. I'm gonna go back to the raw and take the suggestion to bring the highlight down and see what I can accomplish.
Out of curiosity, the two of them looking at each other is so intriguing. If you really cropped it around them, what would it look like?
Like that or closer, tighter?
Yep.
Nah.
No, just curious.
Nah, that's too boring. Sorry.
Yeah. That's why I didn't do it. That's why I didn't do it. Okay, and now on to our next photo. Leonid Sheckman, Forgotten Lake.
Wow. Very nice.
I think I told him about this landing. Didn't I, Leonid? I told you, go on, walk over there. There's a landing behind the fence.
We were over there together.
Yes, I called you over. I was glad to find that.
A great angle.
Yeah, he really did capture it well. My picture was from this end here, looking straight down. And what a difference to look through his lens.
I like the moody colors.
I do too.
Nobody minds the Photoshop sky?
I was just gonna ask about that, so that's not real, huh?
Unless,
it wasn't another.
unless you went back a little bit later. Tell us about your process, please.
It's a Photoshop. That's it. It's all Photoshop.
All Photoshopped, huh? I like it. And then you brought us a picture called Evening.
Oh,
This is lovely.
That's nice. Very nice.
Yeah, it was a simple tree, but it was looking fantastic.
Yes, and I know what this little dot is right here because I took a picture of it. That little dot right there,
Mhm.
that's a dead lobster. I kid you not. I have a picture of it. So do you, Ellen.
I do. I have a close-up.
Yes, you do. It's like a macro. And then you asked me, what was the rusted bolt? That was right under the lobster.
I did not see that.
Yeah, yeah. You're too busy looking at the lobster.
Thanks for not.
Did the lobster smile?
And then if my ordering is correct, Lynn Levitt was with us and she presented Living at the Seashore. It's the Agmanson house. It's really a good point of view.
Great point of view.
The thought of 5 steps to the left to catch the windows more.
Yeah.
It's the thought.
And also, I think the main house is a little too much smack in the middle. The main tree and the building a little bit too could be moved a little bit to the right.
You know, I think the position it was shot from hides the damage on those windows that was there pretty well.
yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's the goal or not, but it does happen to do that.
yeah, that may have been intentional. I don't know. I'll have to ask Lynn. Because there was quite a bit of damage there. I noticed that. And unless you were there, you wouldn't know.
And she may have been focusing on that great walkway. I mean, that seems to be the main component.
All right.
Yeah, I like that it breaks the rule and it's right there in smack in the center. I like that.
Well,
That's just me.
I think if we crop out the front grass of the walkway, if we shoot it at a lower angle to emphasize the walkway that get your eye leading light into the main house, that'd be nice.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there, Kong, and I think that would give us a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? A little more, see that?
Yeah.
If you could go up those stairs to the house, that may actually give it what you're looking for.
Right.
5 steps to the left. Yeah.
Get a little bit
here.
Yeah, a little bit closer.
Bring this from here to maybe here, turn the whole thing around.
Yeah.
You can look up the stairs. It's just a thought. And you know what? It's really easy to go back and do it again.
Yes, let's go back.
It's a great place to go. I'd recommend going on a weekday. The parking's only $3. On the weekends, they nail you for 15.
Mhm.
And the next photo is brought to us by Lynn, and it's called The Little Shanty. And this is going to give me a problem again because I'm in annotate mode. There we go. I don't know where she saw this. I missed it.
I think it was when we walked from, because we got there very early, we walked along the PCH to the lagoon. We saw a couple of outbuildings like this. So I believe that's where that was.
Oh. It looks like a his and hers outhouse.
Yeah. Maybe.
And again, she centered it.
But that's okay there.
There's an artistic, there's an artistic reason
Uh-huh.
for
It
this
could be
choice.
a back room.
Hmm?
for horse riding and stuff like that, it could be a place where you keep the stuff of
Yeah,
riding.
Like a tap room.
yeah.
It's nice
I
texture.
love these door handles. They look like what those guys who lay brick or smooth on the stucco with. You know what I mean?
Oh,
It kind of looks like that, doesn't it?
uh-huh.
Forget plaster foams. And all this hardware, the T-hinges. There's a lot to see here on just a simple little outhouse. It's really cool.
And the wood is great.
The wood has great textures, yes, and
Yeah.
how it's water bleached by the
Yeah.
water at the lower region,
Exactly, yeah.
and a little pop of color here. And our next photo is by Martin Briones, and it is called After You.
Wow.
Nice.
That's the kind of pictures he takes while I'm taking a picture of a lady in a bikini.
They're both birds.
Oh my, we'll all be flocked.
Beautiful,
I
as
love
always.
I love the detail on the feathers. Wow, and caught such a great
Yeah.
point. The tail, look at the tail.
How does he do that every time? Ay, ay, ay.
That's a Martin trademark secret.
Yes.
Yeah, see, I don't hear anybody talking about the horizon on this one.
It's too
We
straight.
don't notice it.
Leonid, you wouldn't crop it lower? I like it this way. It's great vertical. And his next shot is called Family Swim.
Oh,
Beautiful.
I love the title.
Yeah, that's the mood of this one is really tremendous.
See,
Love
Lloyd,
those
I don't
dudes.
see the 1 inch of mud there. It really was a different experience for us. It was a nice day there.
Good.
The lagoon looked pretty good for the most part. And what we didn't like, we just photoshopped out.
Exactly.
This is great. And then our friend Noel Roque, he did a day with the birds. And I just can't wait to show you this photo.
Sounds like you're talking about a Hitchcock movie.
Mhm.
Those guys don't even have a t-shirt on and they're standing there, all of them.
good horizon.
It's Noel, of course.
So I came to the shoot with the wrong lens. And there's a considerable amount of post-processing for this shot. I should have really brought the 200 to 500 lens, but I just grabbed my bag and left. So all I had was an 80 to 200, and I was shooting from the vantage point of the Adamson house. So if you were there, you know how far that is from where this actual shot was. So this is one of the rare instances where I crop close to the composition that I wanted. But before I did that, I used Enhance to be able to boost the detail and the size of the file to compensate for the distance. And then that's after processing the image, that's when I did the final crop for the composition. This is a 21:9 CinemaScope aspect ratio.
Awesome.
Well, it worked, Noel. It all worked very well.
It does work.
Yep. The enhance I don't normally use, but in this instance, I didn't have a long lens. So, yep.
Good solution.
I like it, and I like the way it gives you the impression the birds were right above the people.
Oh, they were really, I mean, there's no, I did nothing. I mean, that was the shot. So
Yeah.
they really were, and to do something like this, and I don't do bird photography, but I mean, I took a lot of shots and I actually had a nice time just watching the birds take off and fly around. It was such a refreshing sight to see, So I just took several shots and chose what I thought was the best.
You know what speed you shot it at?
Probably around, I would say 800 to 1,000. I'm not exactly sure because I did aperture priority. And I set the aperture to, I believe it was either 8 or 11.
I really like how you're anchored by this tent on the right-hand side. That's like just, it's perfect. This anchoring here, and it gives it a right to left flow for me.
By the way, just as a little tidbit, after I used enhance to apply to this raw image, and then enhance quadruples the file size. So I can print this panorama up to 47 inches wide, just so you know. Originally, this was from a 36 megapixel camera, but remember, I had to crop this close because I was shooting from afar. I mean, this was actually a wider shot.
Mm-hmm.
But because of because of the enhance, when you quadruple the image, you can actually crop in close to it. Now it's not the sharpest image, but in terms of a photo, I mean, I don't know, it works for me. I'm not after clinical sharpness for a shot like this,
So I think it just goes to show it's the content that's king.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
Go ahead.
Oh, that's it.
And then he brings us another one, and he titles it "The Gang's All Here."
Cormorant's nice.
Nice title.
Yeah. Now for this photo, before I actually rendered it in color, I tried it as a black and white. The only problem I had with the black and white was that vegetation on the top part of the photo. I didn't like how it looked in black and white. It looked kind of muddy and mushy. So I did the reverse, and I actually intentionally oversaturated the image. And then I just made the birds darker. So. Now this one was a closer shot because what happened was I was able to walk around the lagoon and actually go to the beach area. So from that vantage point, I was really closer to the birds, even with an 80 to 200 lens.
And I took it.
So anyway, that's it.
Interesting, all the black cormorants and then the one white bird on the right. I like that.
Yeah, yep. I thought that was, yes, I'm glad you noticed that. I thought that was interesting too.
Isn't that a pelican next to the egret?
That is a
sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
My Washington kids and grandkids were in Oceanside.
I really like
Soccer
this
tournament.
texture. I really like the
Period.
texture it's going
So
on.
I went down there.
I would suggest the alternative
yeah.
title called Minority.
Helene should mute.
She is now. And we're on to the next photo, and the last photo, number 15, is from Susie. And I'm guessing I know where this is. Susie, are you here to talk about it? I love that she incorporated the window.
Very nice framing.
Window framing.
Yep.
I thought Susie was with us, but
They were earlier.
This has got to be from the restroom on the Edmondson property as we were getting ready to leave and walk.
I think you're right, Jay.
Here. And it was one of the cleanest convenience rooms I have ever been to on an outing. This was just wonderful to be able to be there and have such accommodations, if you know what I mean. Because we're photographers, we're out there, we're taking pictures, we're on the beach, there's tar, there's this, there's that. And then you had this wonderful restroom where you could wash up and relieve yourself.
Nice.
Wonderful.
And that's it for our photo share. I really appreciate everybody being here today.
Good work.
What'd you think of the presentation that we had this evening? Should we do that again?
Yeah, excellent.
That was good.
All right.
I have a suggestion, Jay. Maybe he could talk more. He could talk more about the workflow next time.
Yeah,
I think that's the part. I think that's the part that's missing, because the sad thing is the workflow. If people learned it earlier, then you're not presenting in bits and pieces. So like the first thing to do would be to calibrate your monitor and set your brightness correctly. And then the next thing would be like so on and so forth.
Yeah, I made mention of that, and I am going to call him back. I'm just so grateful that on short notice that Hunt came through for us, and that's why they can call me a customer, because I know I can go on Amazon and get something, but I could also call Noah and ask him questions and know that what I'm buying is what I should be buying. He's very good that way.
But there was a lot of really good content. The color gamut, I mean, he explained it very well, the profiles and all of that. It made it easier to understand.
Yeah.
Basically what it is to just generate a 16-bit TIFF file in ProPhoto RGB. That's really the end result of all that processing.
I won't speak for everybody, but I will tell you, he flipped a switch on me that made me fully understand color space. And I'm actually now understanding it enough to where I'm interested in it. Before it was so intimidating.
Yeah.
I hesitated to do research on it, but now because I understand that umbrella, that's my analogy. The umbrella, I'm ready to go. May I ask us all to wave goodbye to the YouTube audience? The recording is going to stop now.